Hi and welcome to Linus Napoleonic Shipyard. So this first section of the video is actually going to be some changes that I made in the last couple of days since I recorded the previous video, and the previous video is not out yet. This gonna come right after this section. So this initial section is around 5 minutes, I think I'm going to make it, and then the rest is there. Some of those things in that video will be out there, but most of it will be the same, like how the lists work and so on. So you can still, I'm still working when watching the whole thing, so you get the background and everything with where the rules came from, James Dix's original input and idea that I went with. But there's been many changes made at this point, and mostly also to the balancing, the way ships are priced, so the cost of the ships. And also some of the way that the things are split into calibers and so on is also changed. And the calculations for different things has also changed. So, but it is a bolt-on system that you can use for Black Seas, as I will explain later. With our house rule, or even without them, it would be working just as a ship like a standalone. Of course, you'd have to pick all the ships from this list and not from the standard lists, because otherwise you might get a little bit discrepancy in guns and so on. So I'm just going through. There is a section here that you can also download and have as a printout with all the different rules and the calculations and so on, like how things are divided in this house rules. So you can use that one, and I'm just going through it here real quick. There is a big change other than that I need to mention, is that before I was using only 3 decks as a source for the ship stats. I've left that at this point, so there will be some ship stats from other places. It's a mix. I'm using a couple of different sources at this point. For ship stats, and then I had some errors sneak in, but I'm working on clearing that out with some fictional ship names for some Chinese pirate ships and so on. They should be in the generic section, but otherwise it seems to be working okay. But that's a big change. So that's the only source is no longer 3 decks. There's several different sources for it, and this is the current look. And as I'm going to be talking about in the main video section, it is a work in progress, so there might be some changes still, especially to the generic or the standard ships, so to say, the standard ship section. And also, of course, there might be some changes to the historical ship section. I might be adding some more ships. There is a lot of ships in already at this point. I have to mention, and a lot of nations. I've added a few nations, so there's a couple of more nations than were mentioned or that will be mentioned in the coming section here in the video. Also, that I have the ship cards when you put the ship in your fleet, like into my fleet. Like now, I put USS Constitution in there. You'll see that you can have the mouse over for the fast sailor and so on, and you get more the ship data. And I have this in where you have the inexperienced, and that's a final calculation for the ship. That's actually a Swedish ship I had in there. A couple more Swedish and Danish frigates added as well since the other day. Trying to make sure that all the historical data, but it's a work in progress. As I say, that it's correct for the system, so to say, so that the ships are balanced cost-wise and so on, depending on calibers and all that. So here I'm just going through the different rates, so you can see how many are in. So you see there's quite a few of the different types, especially third rates. There's a lot of third rates in at this point. Of course, there were many more, but at least there is a bunch in. A couple of fourth rates, some Briseis, a couple of heavy frigates, a ton of fifth rates. I hope this will let you have some variety when you're selecting your ships, at least for the names and so on. I tried to get some variation in. There's a couple of sixth rates, and now we're moving into the ship sloop, right? 3-masted small ship, and then the brig sloops. 2-masted small ships, or usually called brigs normally, right? You have the gun brigs and so on. A lot of different types. Also, some more nations, as I mentioned, some pirate type for pirate scenarios. The names here is going to be gone, and they're not going to be in the historical section. I want them as generics, so then you can make up your own names and so on. But because these are fictional names, they're just in temporarily, so I don't want them in this section. But they're going to be in the generic or the standard ship section, so that you can pick your own ships from these more like pirate factions, or like Far East pirate factions, I would call them, or something like that, if you're playing a scenario in that section area of the world. So that's some of the changes that I made to this app since yesterday, and I mean, the rest is going to be in the main section of the video that will come after this, but I just wanted to give you a heads up that it has changed quite a bit. I'm making changes to it all the time now, and hopefully as you get this, you will give me some feedback that is going to be very welcome. I also mentioned this later, but I'm going to say it from the beginning. Like, let me know if there's something sticking out or something not working. You know, we can balance it together. So, let's move to the main section of the video. Today, I am excited to share something with you that I worked a little bit on, actually in parallel with the other stuff I've been doing. And it's an page or an app for Black Seas, which takes some of the house rules that we have, and also some actually house rules inspired by a gentleman called James Dix that was talking to me about splitting the gunnery system into more different calibers. So he had split the calibers of the long guns into heavy, medium and light. So there's another split there than from the normal rules. I've gone with this and taken a little bit further, and bolted on a system where it tries to balance the ships, so the ship costs according to ornament and size and speed above a certain average. I'll get into all of that later. So if you're a fan of Black Seas and you want maybe some more variety, or try to play the game in a different way and so on, or maybe have used the house rules that we've been using in the past, this is an addition to that, and it's a system for you to have a ship list where you just actually, instead of course there is a possibility of building your own ships in the application, and there's also some standard ships. I have to say the standard ships, they are a little bit, they're not done. The whole thing is a work in progress, and also some of those standard ships are not working as intended. And that is all coming down to the fact, and I have to admit this, I am not a great coder. So I have ideas, and I try to implement ideas and in many different ways. So I have had help from AI apps with the coding, which is very frustrating, because sometimes an AI app will just do its own thing without you asking it. So all of a sudden a ship stat has changed for no reason, or it's added something that you didn't want adding, so you have to check the code constantly. So it's not like a easy path. Well, it is easy. It lets you implement stuff, and lets me implement stuff and give you guys stuff that I've been thinking about, but still keep that in mind as you're using this. It's a work in progress, and that's how it is. Also, I would like to say before we get into it that I have used only ship data from one site, and I was thinking this would be good, because if the app would use data from many different sites, if I use data from many different sites all over the internet, you would get conflicts. Like data in one place would say one thing, another would say another. So the original ship data that the broadsides are based on, and also the ship points, they come from freedex.org, and I really recommend that site because it has a lot of those historical ship data, but also some other data about a particular person in history that you would look up, like a ship history, and so on. So that's a great site, and I've written them and asked them also if they think it's okay for me to use their data in this free app, so to say, because of course it's none of their ships are really there, but the historical data is historical data, but it's historical data that was compiled on their site, right? So I just want to make sure that I do everything right there. So what the app does then is it translates that historical data, like the decks, the different gun decks and the calibers and so on, into ship data for Black Seas that we then can use. It's a variation of Black Seas, of course, because it does have that split in gun calibers. But it lets the app categorizes them, and then you can pick a nation, and you pick a ship from that historical nation. So hopefully, building historical ship lists. What it doesn't have, this app, is I haven't added on any upgrades and so on. Some ships might have been known as fast sailors. I've tried to look that up. And then they might have, and that hasn't worked out fully. I think some ships might have the fast sailor tag when they shouldn't, but it's a work in progress. So anyhow, if they are a fast sailor, they would have not only like in the normal, but as with our house rules, they would have another rate of knots. So if a standard frigate is a 5, then a fast sailor like Endymion would be a 6, but that's also taken into account once the cost of that ship is calculated. So that would be a slightly more expensive ship for balancing reasons. I'm not sure this is entirely the correct way to go, but that's the way I've gone. Usually we play without the national modifiers, or sometimes we do play with them, but mostly without. I might add the national modifiers back into this app eventually, but probably at the cost. Like if it's a really good national modifier, maybe that will add to the cost of that nation ship, also for balancing. So if you then want a historical, of course historical battles could be unbalanced, but it should be very clear when they are unbalanced, I think, point-wise. That's it for the intro, I think. So credit to freedebts.org, and of course James Dix for the idea, because and that's DIX. He had this idea and he shared it with me, and then I tried it out, but I had a problem with it because I felt like using the point values from the original system and then bolting this on. I felt like, for instance, a Spanish third rate, if you look at the data, would then end up with medium guns instead of heavy guns for their lowest gun deck, because they were using lighter caliber. They were lighter armed than British ships. This is not well known, but it's a fact. They had a lighter armament, especially on their third rates, which probably played a lot into the outcome of many battles, I think. So what have I done then? So I took his system, James Dix system, and I developed a little bit further. So for the long guns, traditionally you would just have, or in Black Seas you would just have the H and the L, right? So you'll have the heavy long gun and the light long guns, and you have Carronades, SC, and those are shorter range, 8 inches, and but heavy hitters. So this system then splits those into 6 categories. So you'll have the heavy long guns, the H, and those are your massive 32 pound and above guns. So guns on the lower gun deck, on first rate, second rate, maybe third rate, or actually third rate. Maybe some reserves like Majestic would also use those on their lower gun deck. The M guns are your mid-range guns, usual ornament for maybe a frigate, so 18 to 24 pounders, workhorses basically. And then the light guns would be the 9 to 12 pounders, and actually a little bit below that. I've counted those as well. in this. So those are the three categories for the long guns. You have the H, the M, and the L. And the H will do 3 damage, and then the M will do 2 damage, and the L will do 1 damage. And this is the way that James had it as well, and then he had the Carronades as one category. But I've split the categories into 3 as well. So you have the heavy Carronades, and those are like the 32 pound and above for the Carronades, like 42 pounders, 68 pounders. I also have a rule, if a ship have a certain number of 68 pounders, even if it's not enough to give a dice within the system, like how it calculates, it will get a dice anyway, because that's such a big smasher, and the amount of damage like Victory's 68 pounder did during the Battle of Trafalgar, I think it deserves, even if there's not many, they deserve to be in there. So I've made some small changes. I'm not going to go into it exactly. I guess you guys, if I release this, are going to play it and test it, and then we'll figure out how we're going to balance things further. But so you have those, and then you have those mid-range Carronades, which would be marked by a normal C, and then you have the light Carronades. Many smaller vessels had Carronades, but they were lighter calibers. I mean, maybe not the gun brig. A gun brig would have the heavier or the normal caliber Carronades, but smaller ships would have some lighter Carronades, like below 18 pounder, and then they will be marked with an LC. A heavy Carronade does 4 damage, a normal Carronade does 3, and then a light Carronade does 2 damage. So the Carronades do slightly more damage. They have less range. All of them are 8 range, except for the light Carronades that are 6 in range. The ranges for the long guns is heavy and medium guns have the same range, 20 inches, and then the light guns keep the 14-inch range of the original game. I do hope that you will use this with our addition. That's actually in the information box here in the app, as you can see. We are using our house rules for the critical hits. So, and sometimes it's been a little bit of confusion with how you would use this. So basically you roll as normal, you roll to hit dice, the D10s, right? And then you get a 1 on a D10. And in the normal game, that's a crit. In our game, it might be a crit, but it all depends on caliber and range. So you'll have that system where, and now I've changed it a little bit further, so where the heavy long guns, they would have a different scale than the medium gun, as you can see. And then also different dice at different distances. So if you're above 12 inches with a heavy long gun, then you need to roll a 1 on a D3. Additionally, after you rolled your initial 1 on your to-hit roll, to actually score the critical. And then once you get below 12 down to 3 inches, then it's a 1 to 3 on a D6 dice to score that critical. Below 3 inches, and this goes for all guns, so if you're at close range below 3 inches, the initial 1 is enough. So then you don't need to roll additional rolls. And that goes for heavy long guns, medium long guns, light long guns, heavy Carronades, medium Carronades or normal Carronades, and then the light Carronades. All of them score automatically below 3 inches. Above, you might need to, or you will have to make another roll. And so you can see this in the list here that I've included in the information section of the app. So I think when you're using this system with the historical ship, or the list with the historical ship, maybe you also use this system for the critical hits. We feel like it balances out pretty nicely. And it also encourages you to use your ship's ornaments, like the ship's ornaments is going to make more of a difference, I hope, with this system. And you're going to try to, So all those sheets, and there's a lot of stuff on there, and I've gone through them before, and it's a lot of the stuff from Model Affiliate originally. I mean, I compile stuff, I come up with some own stuff, but I also take stuff from others that I find is good, and I give them credit. So there's a lot of stuff on the sailing on there that he came up with, and so on. So those sheets I've released them in earlier videos, and they're available on the Black Seas community on Facebook. So just you can get them there. with the addition here, I'm going to probably make some new ones using this system with the more caliber guns. Okay, so that's the background. Also, for the ship costs, there is a balancing being done. So the page will look at the ship points, and the ship points is calculated just as in the normal game. So the ship points is actually the number of guns. But it will look at the ship point and give a base value from that. I think it's times 4, yeah. So the base value is like the ship points times 4, and then we'll bolt on any guns that you have, and then a light long gun will be 5, a medium will be 10, and a heavy long gun will be 15, and then the Carronades are a little bit more expensive, so they'd be 10, 15, and 20 because of their heavier hitting power. This might be unbuilt. This is the way I made it so far. We haven't play tested this system with these stats so far. This is just a brain concept. So, but I'm hoping that we all can play test it together, and then we'll find out if it works or not. I'm suspecting it will work really nicely because we've moved in that direction when we're playing with our house rules for Black Seas. So I'm pretty sure it will work quite nicely, but untested so far. So, and all those things balances into the cost of the ship. And as I mentioned earlier, also if you have a ship that is a fast sailer, that is counted, and it's going to have another rate of knot compared to its class. And so if you have a fast sailing, say, third rate, I don't think I have any in, but maybe there were some. I think I have one. We'll see. So then the base stat for a third rate is yes, it's a normal gauge 4 rate of knots, right? And then if that would then have 5, it will also affect its cost. So it will be a more expensive ship because it's faster. So a Spanish third rate would probably cost less than a British third rate, but it's also lighter armed, right? And so I hope it all balances out that way. So the nations I have in the historical section of the app are of course the major nations like Great Britain, France, Spain, and United States. But I also have the Netherlands, Denmark, Sweden, Russia, Portugal, Naples, the 2 Sicilies, some like the Tunisian Ottoman Empire, Venice, and so on. And they all have their quirks because nations had their preferences, and this is based on the historical data, right, from freedex.org. So the quirks will be historical quirks, hopefully. That's the idea. You can also, when you're selecting a ship, as you can see here, you can select by nation, but you also, and rate, of course, or type of ship, if they're unrated. And then also, I know there's some area in here I need to correct with the turn angles for some, I think, Spanish specs that still have the yellow turn angle. They should have the red one. But there's still fixes going on here as I'm speaking. But then also you can select by period. You make a custom period, like yes, this particular year. And that's also tracked. I mean, that's the data from freedex.org, like if the period where the ship was active. So is it active during the period you select the place? So maybe the War of 1812, and that's an area you can select. But you can also select a particular year with the custom selection. So maybe 1803, which ships were available to the British in 1803, and you'll get a list. So I hope that will make it easier for you to pick out some historical matchups, probable or improbable, or probable I mean, but also like historically you could pick up the ships from a particular battle, but you could also make up what if scenarios and so on. Yeah, and I went through the way the system worked with the ship calibers and so on. The generic or the standard ships is a work in progress. They're unbalanced. They're using an old calculation. Some of them, I think there's still errors in there. I'm trying to correct that slowly, but I'm working. I don't want to pay a bunch of money to the AI app company for me to fix this stuff like quickly. I'm just going to wait my turn until I get my daily credits and work in small chunks. This is for free, so needs to not cost me too much either to make. Anyway, it's a work in progress, but they're there. You can create your own ships and add to your fleet as well. You'll add in the historical calibers and decks, just like you would in B2 quarters, I guess. And then the page will recalculate that into ship stats. Just as in the normal Black Seas, the ship stats line is the same, except for the calibers being split into more, and that the rate of knot, if it's a fast sailor, is actually 1 plus rate of knot. Then you build your fleet. There's an export function, and that exports the whole fleet list into a document, a text document for you, so you can just use it for your game. You can select inexperienced and veteran crews, or regular, and yes, as in the normal game, a veteran crew will add 20% to the point value, and inexperienced will deduct 20%. I haven't added any other upgrades so far. Try it, test it if you want them in. Maybe you can bolt them on after the fact, or maybe I'll add it in at a later point. But for now, I mean, we're not, when we're playing historical battles, we're trying to go with the historical stats, and then we're not adding in too much of those upgrades. I think what we could add in first, before we think about any upgrades, would be the historical characters and their stats. That could be something that we could add in that would probably make more sense to me. But up to you. Let me know what you think. So yeah, and I talked about a little bit of the differences in the fleets, and that comes from the historical differences. This I'm sharing here, there's the URL below that you can use to access the app. And the page is Linus Napoleonic Shipyard.github.io / shipwright S Armory. It's in the description, and that's where you'll find this app that you can just use and build your fleets. Also, as I said, the critical house rule, I encourage you to try that out, see how it works. I think it would be the best one for this system. So let me know how it goes. I would love to hear in the comment if you try this out, how does it go? Maybe share your fleet lists, like how does your fleet list look when you're building your fleet here, and give me feedback on the balance and so on. Maybe you can suggest, maybe there is more ships that we can pick up from 3decks.org. There is an option. I'm not sure I'm going to have that in there. I think that I'm going to hopefully get in contact with the gents behind 3decks.org, but there's a way for you to look at 3decks.org in the app, and then pick a ship and then try to import that into the ship lists. If it's not in there already. There's a few, I think there's around 400 historical ships in already. So for many engagements, I think that will be perfect. That will be enough for building your fleets, definitely. And as I said, the historical ship data, all credit goes to 3decks.org. I don't take any credit for that. I just use their data in this and translate it into a system that we can use for Black Seas. And the base ID with splitting it into more caliber is not my own either. That's James Dix's. So credit for that ID goes to him. So I just, like to tinker with stuff, and this is the latest way I've tinkered with a game that I really enjoy. And I hope this is not going to add on too much. I don't think it's going to slow down gameplay very much for Black Seas, because one of the main points for me playing Black Seas is the fact that I can play any size engagement without it taking too much time. Like, you can get things done pretty quickly. That's the brilliance of the system with Black Seas, I think, that you can do that. So that's all for this time. there is something really exciting coming up. I have a little bit of an unboxing, you could say, with some brilliant 1/700 scale